Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Book and Briar. This is actually the first official episode outside of the introduction that I did. And oddly enough, it's also the first video that I filmed. I have not filmed the introduction yet. It's just kind of the way that the timeline has went. I wanted the introduction to be a little bit better, so this is being filmed now, and it will obviously release after the introduction. So, what is the Book and Briar? Well, per the introduction, it is just a creative outlet for me to share my thoughts on different books and literature, poems, essays, things like that, while also talking about pipes, pipe tobacco, coffee, physical fitness, philosophy, theology, all the things. So let's start off with what I'm smoking today and what I'm smoking it in. We'll get the pipe started up, and then we will discuss the book for the morning. So this is my Spartan Straight Billiard. It is just a cheapo estate pipe that I got. Honestly, all my pipes are cheap estate pipes at the moment. I am eyeing a couple of Petersons as well as a Savinelli, just to see if I want to try anything else. I'm smoking Cornell and Diehl's Bayou Morning. So it is a vapor, which is a Virginia Perique blend for those who don't know. It's a little sweet, it's pretty spicy. I'm not too sure if I like it all that much. My favorite so far has been Winchester from Cornell and Diehl. It's kind of my daily driver, but I wanted something for the first pipe of the day, along with the coffee, to be a little bit more spice to it. So we'll get that char light going and then go from there. So the thing with Bayou Morning, and this is my first vapor, so this may be the case with most Periques, which I'm kind of assuming it is, given the nature of the Perique tobacco that's in there. It's just kind of instantaneous spice. It's similar to, having, I wouldn't say cayenne pepper, but pepper on food, where if it's overly done, the first thing you hit is the spice, and then you get the flavor, especially with the first light. Now I do have Peter Stokkebye's Luxury Navy Flake coming in. That's going to be my first flake tobacco, and it's also a vapor, but it's got a bit of a rum topping, if I remember right. So we'll see if that's any different than the Bayou Morning. I know the Bayou has a pretty heavy amount of Perique to it, and that may be why I have that overwhelming spice effect. Kind of sip it for a bit. I find with Virginias, especially with a straight billiard, if you sip it for like the first third of the bowl, then you can clench it and breathe with it, and it tends to go a little bit better. It's got a good flavor to it. You just kind of have that overwhelming spice, especially with like a retrohale. When you're blowing it out your nose, you definitely get that spice effect to it. Okay, so we got that lit. We'll keep it going. We'll see how that goes. I tend to just smoke in the peace of my own time without having anything else to do. So we'll see how it goes trying to do a video while smoking. So the book that we're going to be talking about, George R.R. Martin's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Picked this up a couple weeks ago. I have not read the actual Game of Thrones series. Like most people, watched it on HBO forever ago. And I had just finished both the Narnia Chronicles and all of the Lord of the Rings books. And I went into my local Books A Million, and the guy behind the counter was there, and I said, hey, this is what I've read, this is what I'm interested in, what are your suggestions? He asked if I'd read Martin's Game of Thrones series. I said no. He said, well, if you are going to start it, you should start with The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, because it is technically a prelude to the world that the Game of Thrones books are written in. So, followed his advice, picked it up. Not really sure what I was getting into. I'd never read any Martin stuff. I had consulted with a couple of people that I know and trust that read medieval fiction, which is a genre that I didn't think I'd ever like, and I've actually grown to really love it. And they said, yeah, try it, see what you think. He's got a more, I would call it, common writing style. Obviously, he uses older English language and things like that, and language that you would find common in some sort of medieval literature. But it's delivered in a way that doesn't quite bog you down as much as some of Tolkien's stuff does. So it's much more, if I had written it and used various languages, this is how it comes across. So first relight. The thing that I like about this book, to begin with, it's actually apparently a collection of stories about the main character, Dunk, or Sir Duncan the Tall. I'll try my best not to give off too many spoilers for those who haven't read it that want to read it. But it's a collection of stories about him and his trials and travels of knighthood, along with his squire that he picks up along the way. And as you read, you will find the twists and turns involved with that. I think what I really love the most about these stories is that the main character, Dunk, is a common person. He starts off as a squire to a knight, through circumstances essentially becomes a knight, and it's basically his struggle and trials to make a name for himself, become a knight, and it's very much a in for a penny, in for a pound type of attitude from him. I love books that are about common people doing uncommon things. I find that that's usually the case with most of what I read. It was one of the big things that I liked about both the Narnia Chronicles and Tolkien's Lord of the Rings series. It's essentially people who are not special as far as the main characters go. Well, this is going to be difficult. As far as main characters go, they are not special, they are not superhuman, they do not have any necessarily special attributes, but they go on to do amazing things, and I love stories written like that. Most of what I had read up to a point was Westerns, given that I am in the southern United States, and the library that I had at my high school was about 90% Louis L'Amour. That's most of what I've read, and I feel like that's probably shaded my personal bias towards what I like in a book. And what I love about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is that he's a very common person. He doesn't win all the time, he doesn't lose all the time. Honestly, he probably loses more than he wins, but in the end he does prevail, in my opinion. So this book specifically, what I do like about it is the illustrations. I guess you could call me a kid at heart, but the illustrations, just we'll start with this one. It's the very first thing you come to, first chapter, first book really, is A Hedge Knight. The illustrations by Gary Gianni, he did an excellent job portraying exactly how I mentally pictured most of these scenes. So when the illustrations do come out in the story, it's pretty part and parcel for what I'm expecting, and I really love that. I'm not a big illustrations person. I tend to like to let my brain create the story and create the picture, or movie, if you would, as I read. But these illustrations really do go along quite well with it, and I think that's probably one of the things that I liked about the Narnia Chronicle books too, is that the illustrations that were involved in that, which I think most commonly were just at the chapter heads. I don't quite remember, it's been several months since I read that. The illustrations for those were well done as well. I'm not sure who did the illustrations for that, but anyways, they did an excellent job as well. Back to the book. Would I suggest it? Yes. I would definitely suggest it, especially if you are wanting to get into the Game of Thrones series books. I'm actually just starting the first Game of Thrones novel. I'm probably an eighth of the way through it. And at the very least, you have a better idea of the world that it's written in. I don't know that I would call this like he did, where he said this was a prelude to the book. Yes, technically in the timeline, it is before the Game of Thrones books, and I'm sure that there will be certain tie-ins from this book or series of books that play into the Game of Thrones series. But as it is right now, you can certainly read the Game of Thrones books as a standalone. I like doing things in chronological order when I can, and that is in reference to the timeline of the story, not necessarily the publication. For instance, reading The Hobbit before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or The Hobbit and the Cimmerian, and Desolation of Smaug, all that. Reading those before the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy, and reading the Chronicles of Narnia books in order. We read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in high school. Had I known that the professor's nephew was the beginning of that, I probably would have started there. So all that being said, we've talked about the book. I don't want to give too many spoilers in there. I gave kind of an overview of that. I hope that's enough. If you want more detail in book reviews, or book overviews, I guess is what it would be, let me know in the comments. If you want more information on the pipes, pipe tobacco, the things that I'm doing, I plan on doing a series of videos as far as my journey on that. I've been smoking a pipe off and on for about a year and a half, heavily the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm learning a ton with that as far as what I like and what I don't like. So if you want me to share that as well, just let me know in the comments. We'll keep this going. Until then, I highly suggest you pick up a copy of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms if you haven't. Give it a read. It's pretty quick. I think I read it in about 3 or 4 days, over basically my breaks and lunch breaks at work, and not reading. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please just continue to follow along. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and we'll keep this ball rolling.